when Governor Fob James was governor, he said in a public pronouncement published by the newspapers that Alabama was the first state in the Union to reach tax freedom, which meant you had paid your state tax, your local tax, your federal tax, and now from this point on for the rest of the year, you're working for yourself. And the date was in March. Unfortunately, our current governor, Bob Riley, did the same thing this year. And he talked about the fact that being the least taxed people in the United States, we were the first ones to have tax freedom. I asked myself this question based upon two assumptions. First assumption was an aphorism from my father, which is, in life you get what you pay for. And the second thing I thought about was Jesus' teaching that in life, your heart is where your treasure is. And if your treasure is in your bank account, that's where your heart is. If your treasure is in low taxes, that's where your heart is. And so I thought I would go over to the Auburn University library and I would do a little research. And just to make sure I wasn't loading the issue against Alabama, I decided to take the 4 states that were the first states to have tax freedom: Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And my theory was, if my father was right and if Jesus was right, what you'd find is that not only are we the first states to have tax freedom, but there's a lot of stuff that goes with that tax freedom. Quality of life issues. If you took a composite of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas, the first states to have tax freedom, and you look at the quality of life for people in those states, you look at the death rate, you look at the infant mortality rate, you look at the number of single-parent families in states where we think divorce is terrible, adultery is terrible, cohabitation is terrible. You look at all these categories. Those 4 states are not only the first states to have tax freedom, they're the states that do not have a very good quality of life in terms of those humane qualities that we think of when we think, where would you want to live? Where would you want to bring up a family? Where would you want your kids educated? Where would you want your kids to live the rest of their lives? Where would you want to go to the hospital? Where would you want to go to a public school? Where would you want to enroll your child in an early childhood program that's meaningful? In other words, you get what you pay for. Or, to look at it from Jesus' standpoint, if your heart is in keeping your taxes low, this is what you get. And if you take the regressive tax systems in the United States, if you look at the 50 states and you say, where do poor people pay an unreasonable amount of their wealth in taxes, and where are wealthy people sheltered from the burden of taxes, is a perfect overlay of the evangelical Bible Belt South.